There's this quality of mine that I think is one of my worst habits. It's like my biggest self-sabotage practice. It's something I desperately want to change about myself, and I'm always trying to, and I'm going to talk about it in this video. If this is your first time to my channel, my name is Steph, my company is Bushyl, and I make things that smell nice. And this is my Vlogmas series, my first time doing it, and we are on day 14, I think. It's hard to keep track of the days, I'll be honest. But I want to talk about an event that I went to recently. It was 2 nights ago, and it's part of a speaker series. This law firm in Milwaukee, where I live, does a monthly interview with a female business owner. People from all different industries at all different stages of their business, but it's always, every time I can go, it's really enjoyable. I love to meet the other people who are in attendance. Now I know some of them, so it's nice to see them again. And I love hearing stories from other business owners, especially other women business owners. And this one was particularly special because the featured speaker was my very good friend, Chelsea. She is the photographer that I share my studio space with. She's also my neighbor and one of my closest friends. So I was going to go to this one regardless, but I also just love hearing her talk about her business because she's a great businesswoman and is a very successful photographer. I think the way her brain works is really interesting. Obviously, when it got started, a lot of the sort of like typical getting to know you questions in the interview, I assumed that I knew all of those answers because I've known her for 7 years now. But what I realized when she was going through the early stages of her business, she's been in business for about 10 years now. And as she was talking about how she got this photography business started, it was a really clear reminder to me of, like I mentioned, one of my worst qualities, or not a quality so much as like a habit, but that is how much I unfairly compare myself to other people. She was talking about the beginning of her business. And when she started her photography business, she was also working as a teacher full-time. And that lasted, I think, 5 years. So for the first 5 years of her business, she also had a full-time job. And then once she had kids, that's when she transitioned to doing photography full-time. But a mistake that I so frequently make is that I look at someone who has other life circumstances that are similar to mine. So maybe they're a similar age to me. Maybe they have kids like I do. Chelsea and I just moved into a shared studio space. So in a lot of areas, we are doing similar things with our lives. But I think that also leads my brain to go to a place where I should be as successful as her with my business. But my business is just starting its 3rd year. I'm not even halfway through my 3rd year of business. And here I am wondering why I'm not as successful as Chelsea, who's been doing this for 10 years. And it's so easy to fall into that trap, but it's so dangerous because it's always an unfair metric. Someone else's business is always the wrong metric for you to measure yourself against, pretty much across the board, in my opinion. I really think the only metric to measure yourself against is your former self. So where was I at a year ago? How am I stacking up in comparison to that? Because otherwise, even if Chelsea only had a 3-year business like I do, there would still be other factors that are completely different. Like her type of business is much different than mine. She's working with fewer clients, but charging them much more per transaction. I'm the opposite situation. And so it still would not be fair to compare ourselves. So what I loved about this event, aside from being able to support a very good friend of mine, I also had that moment of realizing, oh, this is something I've been doing sort of subconsciously, not even really in the front of my mind. I've just always had that thought back there that wow, she's doing so much better than me, and not giving myself any credit for the fact that I'm at a very different place than she is, and that's okay. And so I just wanted to share that little experience because I imagine there are lots of you out there who are doing the same thing. And just know that there are so many factors that contribute to where a person is at with their business. It's really hard to know what someone had available to them to invest in the beginning of their business. You might not know much about the market they're in. I'm in a pretty saturated city as opposed to someone who's starting a business like mine in a very rural area. That's completely different. And there's so many things that you don't know that could contribute to someone's success, and to expect yourself to have the same outcome without the same circumstances is just a really unfair way to criticize yourself and be cruel to yourself. And I'm really trying in all areas of my life to stop doing that. So this was one I wanted to share, and I hope that that resonates with some of you and reminds you that you are on your own journey, and whatever you are doing, it's all about your instincts and your preferences, and it is okay if it looks very different from everyone else.